From Fox 8 Sports, this is the Overtime Podcast.
From the Fox 8 studios in New Orleans, this is the Fox 8 Overtime Podcast. I am your host, Sean Fazende. Riding shotgun next to me as he does each and every podcast, Andre Johnson
Junior.
Do not forget the JR. It's very important to remember the Junior. Before we get into today's content, be sure to like, share, rate, and review. If you're watching us on YouTube, hit that subscribe button, get the bell notification for when we drop that fire content. And we have another fire episode today on this Wednesday, this hump day. How you feeling today?
Feeling good, Sean. You know, it's the last week of OTAs. It's been a long 3 weeks. I think this is the 9th practice. So we've learned a lot in the last few weeks.
We have learned a lot. And I was out there once again today, as I've been the last couple of weeks. It was a hot one. Had some cloud cover at times, so it felt good at times, but make no mistake about it. There was some heat here in June. And that's obviously where we're going to go with the big picture here today, because in this particular OTA, I really wanted to hone in on the quarterbacks, because it's not that each one of them or one of them had a better day than the other one or had a great day or a bad day. I just felt like all three, and even four, had the battle today. And they had some good, some pluses, some minuses, but I thought overall it was just a good day of the ebb and flow with the quarterbacks today, both from a positive and even a negative. It just felt like what the type of circumstances you would see in a regular NFL game.
Right, and you know they say iron sharpens iron. One guy who you've been really high on since the start of OTAs, and just his comfortability and the way that he's really taking into this new Clint Kubiak system has been quarterback Derek Carr. Were you impressed by Carr today?
Okay, look, last week, the practice we were able to see, none of Carr's passes touched the ground. He was 8 for 8. He was perfect. That didn't happen today. He had to battle today, as I mentioned. I do like the way he battled certain circumstances. He opened 7-on-7 with an incompletion. There was a drop in 7-on-7 on a dig route to A.T. Perry, but then he connected on a little check route, and then he just threw a dime to Chris Olave on a deep over route during 7-on-7 for about a 25 to 30-yard gain. Then they got to the first red zone period, which was a little bit more of a deeper red zone, like around the 20-yard line, as opposed to deep red zone or the closer to the end zone red zone, which it did in the final period. And that period, once again, it was a mixture of run and pass. He had the battle, but you know, one of his throws was a pass breakup by Alontae Taylor. It was a great play by Alontae Taylor, but then he executed a pass perfectly to Chris Olave again, who ran an absolutely filthy route. Got Alontae Taylor all turned around. I guess you can call it a kind of a skinny post, or maybe kind of a basic way, kind of a deep end, sort of on the backside of the play. It was a fantastic connection, and I felt like it really it just kind of demonstrated the comfort of the offense, the timing, and just really those two guys getting on the same page, which obviously has to happen for this team to do anything in 2024. But final team period came the first OTA interception for Derek Carr, at least the practices that we were able to see. Came on a weird play, probably was a sack, but the play went on. And there was a lot of congestion in the back of the end zone. We none of us really got a feel for who he was actually intended. Probably was Olave, given the fact that Alontae Taylor was guarding him. But look, this was in the deep red, the congested red. Like I think it was from about maybe the 6 or 5 yard line. So a lot of bodies, a lot of congested space there. He threw it to the back of the end zone. Ball got tipped up, hit Alontae Taylor like 3 times, and out of nowhere, Demario Davis was able to kind of dive over and make the INT for the first interception of camp or of OTAs for Derek Carr. But on the very next play, Carr battled back and was able to kind of flush the pocket, climb, and hit Michael Jacobson, the tight end in the back of the end zone, threaded the needle nicely, and Jacobson was able to come down with a touchdown. I've mentioned Michael Jacobson's name a couple times now. He always seems to be around the ball. That's a player I had nowhere near my radar going into OTAs, and now all of a sudden I've noticed a little bit because he's getting reps. He's making the most of those reps, and when they throw it to him, he catches it. And this was a touchdown for Derek Carr. So 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. He had an unfortunate play at 7-on-7 where the ball was dropped. Would have been a big gain. Bounced back with a big throw to Chris Olave. Like I said, the quarterbacks battled. They weren't perfect. None of them were, but I thought they battled and just handled practice well. So I thought Derek Carr and his reps had a pretty good day today.
And this is something you guys mentioned Tuesday night, but this defense, for the first time in a long time, is actually practicing against a new offensive scheme. This defensive unit you get used to the Sean Payton way of doing things, the Pete Carmichael offense, but just as new as this Kubiak system is for the offense, it's new for the guys who are practicing against it as well. So I think that kind of leads to a bit of the competitiveness that you spoke about.
Yeah, and they did some competitive periods because, it's, like I said, it was a lot of red zone. That's where you score touchdowns. That's money. That's the money part of the field. I mean, defense wants to get off the field. Offense wants to score points. And there's no guessing. You're in the end zone or you're not. So I thought that really kind of amped up the competition as well. So it was a good effort by the ones, both offense and defense.
Now, somebody who we have mentioned struggled in the first 2 weeks of OTAs was rookie quarterback Spencer Rattler. But it seems like today Rattler really kind of pulled it together.
Okay, yeah, he was getting third-team reps once again. He had a nice bounce-back effort from his previous two, let's just call it disasters. He just wasn't good the previous two practices we were able to witness, where he threw 3 interceptions over those 2 practices and probably could have thrown more. He wasn't perfect, but he was better, and he improved from the last 2 practices to this one. That's a very good step. It's a very good sign for the young rookie. We all know he's not there yet, but to take the last couple of practices we were able to see and then come back with a decent day is certainly commendable. 7-on-7 had a nice connection to Mason Tipton over the middle of the field for a decent gain. Threw one to Kyle Sheets. It was a beautiful throw. I think it was either a dig or an over route, but Kyle Sheets didn't come down with it. That's tough. It's adversity. It's going to happen. So that's how we ended 7-on-7. Then they went to that red zone period. Third, again, he's working with the third team. He threw his best pass of camp so far when they ran a bootleg, a play action bootleg pass, and he threw it back across from, it's like he's kind of rolling to his right, threw it back to his left to Cedric Wilson, a guy I pointed out yesterday as an under-the-radar player for the Saints who caught a touchdown. It really was a nice play. It was a nice design. He executed it well. He saw the field well, and if you really watch the play in its entirety, he had to kind of take a breath to let the play develop. He had to give himself an extra count. So his blood pressure was where it needed to be, so he didn't want to speed it up. So it was a nice play, a nice connection from Spencer Rattler. So I thought that was good. That was a good effort. Now, when I went to the deep red zone on the opposite side of the field, inside the 7 or 8 yard line, he didn't get a pass off. Wasn't necessarily his fault. Had some pressure, had some tackles for loss in some of the running plays. But given the previous 2 efforts by Spencer Rattler, he came back today and had a much better day. Dennis Allen talked about him after practice, and he said, look, part of this, and it really was a good point, part of the calendar is to figure out what you can and can't do, especially for a quarterback. Especially for a quarterback. And the only way you're going to know that is if you take some chances and take some risks to see what you can and cannot get away with. And he basically said, it's what we pointed out, those windows look open, or they close fast. It's open, close, open, close. And that's what happened when you're a tick late over the middle in the NFL. Disaster is waiting. So he avoided that today, and all in all, had a pretty good day. Of the OTAs we were able to see, clearly his best one. I thought he was even better today than he was in rookie minicamp.
And that's really all you can ask for of a rookie at this point in the season, especially one who you're not relying to start day one. You want to see a rookie grow over time. We've seen him week by week, once each week so far in the last 3 weeks. And it seems like every week he's getting a little better, and you can see that really materializing today at practice. And I'm sure what you said is music to the ears of the Spencer Rattler QB1 club.
Yeah.
Now, the third quarterback on the roster, the guy they drafted last season, Jake Haener. How was Jake the Snake out there today?
Once again, for the 3rd week in a row, he's the 2nd quarterback in the pecking order. He's number 2 on the depth chart, and he got 2nd-team reps again. So he might be the 3rd most popular, but he's number 2 on the depth chart right now. And look, I thought, again, like all these guys, he was dealt with some tough circumstances, but he overcame it. He started his day great. He lit up 7-on-7. He hit A.T. Perry on a dig route for about 20. Then he hit Jawan Johnson on a beautiful seam route for about 20 or 25 yards. Closed out 7-on-7. A little check down. So he went 3 for 3. Then he went to the red zone. His first red zone period was not a success. He had a pass batted down, was another throw he made. I don't know if it was just a short completion, but they didn't get into the end zone that first red zone period. So that period didn't go well for him. But in the deep red area where they were inside the 7 or 8 yard line, he misfired on a throw to Foster Merle. Looked like he was running kind of a shallow cross. But then, after a couple running plays, Jake Haener threaded it, kind of soft touch beautifully to Jawan Johnson on a little short corner route to the back pylon of the end zone, dropped it in nicely, scored the touchdown to finish off his day on a high note. So, once again, keeping with the theme, the circumstances were not ideal, or I shouldn't say that. They dealt with things, natural bit of adversity that you find in a game-type setting in any NFL game. It's not going to be perfect all the time, and you had to kind of manage your way out of it. And I thought, all in all, I thought he started strong. I thought he finished strong. That red zone, that first red zone period, that first team period, he didn't have quite the success. But nonetheless, I thought he finished off his day on a high note, and I still believe he's ahead of Spencer Rattler in the race for QB2 in the New Orleans Saints.
So all three quarterbacks really seeming like they're growing in this system. Jake having another good day. Derek, you said he had some rough patches, but he bounced back from that adversity, which is what you want to see. Spencer Rattler having the best day that we've seen so far. But one of the guys that they're throwing to, Chris Olave, I believe this is the first day that we've gotten to talk to him. What did you take from really getting to speak to Chris Olave about last season and this season?
Couple things. First off, he was very productive on the field today. Had a couple catches, wearing a red jersey.
Yeah.
It's weird to see a quarterback, a non-quarterback wearing that red jersey. He said there was some injury in the weight room, some kind of shoulder thing. It was minor. Should also point out, Nathan Peterman got 2 throws today. Unfortunately, one of them was an interception. Rico Payton during 7-on-7. It was a bad throw. But anyway, back to Chris Olave. He's excited about the system. You can feel it. He was pretty open about some of the challenges last year. Despite having good numbers, he was pretty open about the new system, doing new things that they've never done. And there's things, I continue to say this, when I watch just the drills before practice, how different it looks. So there's a genuine excitement. There's a new optimism. He's in a new role. He's wide receiver 1 right now, but he thinks this is going to be a situation where he can be more explosive. And they keep highlighting run after catch, run after catch, run after catch. Because we talked about this. This is a get the ball in space and run after catch offense. That's what it's designed to do. So he had a good day, battling an injury, but he still performed. And he seems pretty excited about the road ahead with this new offense, this new, I guess he said the San Francisco offense brought to the Saints, about what he could do for him and obviously the team. Clearly there's some guys that feel like there's a level of creativity that they just haven't been able to tap into that now they are, that could unlock certain aspects, not just Chris Olave, but from a lot of people on the roster's game. So there is a genuine level of excitement and frankly, confidence when it comes with this new offensive system. And I think Chris Olave could be one of the ones that benefits the most.
And now with OTAs really starting to come to an end, we've got mandatory minicamp next week. As you look back on these last 3 weeks, and especially the most recent practice today, what's kind of your biggest takeaway? Or what have you really learned from seeing the Saints in action?
Well, the big thing was just how different the offense looks. I mean, right off the bat, you'd think OTAs, everybody runs the same things, but the way they dress things up, the way they, use motion and personnel groupings and just the way they practice offensively is just so different. I'm going to keep harping on that. And for some of the guys that weren't there, like Kamara, I think it's going to be a little bit of a transition when he's got to show up next week for mandatory minicamp. Like, whoa, this is a little different than what I'm accustomed to. So I certainly think that's the biggest thing that jumps out. Feels like there's a quiet confidence based off of low expectation on the outside, so maybe they feel like the pressure is off. I don't know. I try not to tap too much into that because, I mean, everybody's confident and excited when you're in your OTAs and you haven't played a game yet, and everybody makes certain plays against certain players in practice over and over and over. So that's certainly it's there, but I don't want to harp on that because I don't want. They're in the prove it stage, the show me stage right now before anyone can really jump on that. Something interesting today that popped up is Nick Saldiveri was once again back with the left guard at first team. So this is now 9 practices, 3 that we've seen. He's been either splitting first-team reps or getting all the first-team reps at left guard. So he's gotten the most reps there. So is he in the lead? Who is if he isn't? I mean, he's the guy getting the reps, and I think that's certainly a significant thing because I don't know how settled that position is, but right now in an unsettled position, they haven't really rotated.
Yeah.
It's been Nick Saldiveri for the most part, for the vast majority of the reps. Also this, Taysom Hill again. Taysom Hill's been a story all camp with the new way they're using him and where they're lining him up. And today he had he was the running back where he was 3 toss plays where he was the guy that caught the toss and 2 left, 1 right, or maybe 2 right, 1 left. So, no, look, there are a couple guys down in the running back room, but nonetheless, they're utilizing him a lot as a true running back these last 2 practices. So that certainly stood out to me as well. So it looks different. It does look different. And I think that difference brings in a level of curiosity, excitement, but also let's just see how this ultimately looks when the games start.
Yeah, and as I look ahead to mandatory minicamp, I can already start thinking of a bunch of questions that I still have unanswered. I'm curious to see how, when Alvin Kamara gets there, how will he kind of blend in and fit into this new system? How, when Lattimore shows up, assuming he's there, what will that cornerback hierarchy look like? It's when Kool-Aid McKinstry eventually gets to mix in and you've got the 4 guys there. And then I'm curious to see who stands out at defensive end. You've got some guys down due to injury, so I'm really interested to see of the guys who are still there, 2 of them, young guys, and Peyton Turner and Isaiah Foskey, who can really break out and stand out there. But as we head into minicamp, what are some of the things that you really want to see next week?
Well, there's a few things because a couple of guys have jumped on the radar. I mentioned Jacobson. Last week it was Millard Bradford. Today, Trajan Jeffcoat, a undrafted free agent, closed out practice with 3 big plays, 2 TFLs and 1 sack. I mean, to close out practice, that was what Spencer Rattler. He couldn't get a throw off. So that was another name that really jumped out today. Adebo was out. Matthew was out with Tyrann Matthew was out with a family issue. Lattimore, Shepard, Alvin Kamara, the usual things with them. Brian Brzee, I meant to ask DA about this, but I wasn't able to get to it. He's there. He's doing work, but he wasn't doing many team drills today. So I don't know if they were just trying to get some other guys some reps, but he wasn't doing the same amount of D-tackle reps that I thought he would at this stage. Maybe they're trying to, I don't even want to speculate. He just wasn't doing them today. So as they get to mandatory minicamp next week, it's going to be good to see everybody there. DA said he expects everyone to be there. That includes Lattimore and Alvin Kamara. Not sure what's going on with Paulson Adebo. This is the 2nd week in a row he's missed.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens with Paulson Adebo, but it's mandatory next week. They'll get a little bit longer practice, get to be on the field a little bit longer. And I'm just curious to see the progression. And with some of the guys that hadn't been here, most notably Kamara and Lattimore, I want to see how they kind of blend in for the first time we see them all off season. So it should be an interesting week next week with those 3 practice for minicamp. And look, if one of those guys don't show up, we may have a problem because that's going to be an issue because the coach openly said, I expect everyone to be here, and it's mandatory.
And these are starters we're talking about.
And for the most part, I know Kamara has had, he's been the one that has said stuff from time to time, but when it's time for him to be there, he's there. I don't really know him to be the type that doesn't show up. So we'll see. The expectation is they'll be there, and until that changes, that's the way it's got to be.
One last question I have selfishly, because I just brought him up yesterday when we were talking about under-the-radar guys who can make an impact this season. You guys talked to Isaiah Foskey today. Now, It wasn't long. It was only about 2.5 minutes, but what did you kind of take from that conversation?
Relief, comfort. I think he was very open and honest about how much he just wanted to not make a mistake last year and how much that really impeded his progress, really got in the way of him getting on the field. He was trying to think too much, and his biggest concern on the field was not making a play. It was not making a mistake. And that's just no way to play NFL football. You're going to be slow all the time. You're going to be a step slow. If you're thinking too much and your biggest thing is to just not want to, you just don't want to screw things up. You're playing timid. He feels much more comfortable this year. He's a guy we both brought up a lot. That year 2 from last year's draft class, I think, is very interesting to watch how they develop this offseason and into training camp. He's taking advantage of opportunities with some reps. He may have had a sack today. I wrote his name down. It was close. But I remember talking to him last year. Just even when he spoke, it just felt like he was just really nervous. Like he didn't want to say the wrong thing. It's just I think he's okay, a little comfortable in his own skin to just kind of take a breath and just play and just talk and just be natural. He was pretty natural with us today, and we went over and talked to him by his locker. And when I first got there, it was like 4 or 5 of us, and he's in the middle of answering a question. And then I look over, and like the rest of the media corps comes over. There's another 20 guys that came over. So it was a situation where obviously he's a noteworthy guy, a second-round pick. But, last year if that would have happened, he might have, kind of tensed up a little bit. But he handled it like a pro. And like we said, the Saints haven't given up on him yet, and he has an opportunity to certainly earn some reps and earn some opportunity this year for the Saints. And, man, if he could somehow develop into something, that would be fantastic for this defense.
Right, and like you said, the opportunity is there with the injuries to Tano Passignon, with Cam Jordan getting over what he's getting over, Chase Young not at 100% right now. So the window for him to really make an impact in these OTAs and in minicamp and potentially in training camp, it's definitely there. Now, one guy who is never afraid to say what he's going to say or speak his mind, Jamal Williams.
We talked to him today.
We also talked to him today, and my fellow anime friend, what was he talking about today?
He's an interesting guy. He me likey, he kept saying about the offense. Excuse me. Again, he's a running back in this offense, and there's a genuine smile. There's a genuine level of happiness and excitement when they talk about this new offense because these players are smart. They know it's worked around the NFL, this scheme. And it's the godfather of it all. His son, Kubiak, now Clint Kubiak, is the guy calling the plays and setting everything up, and he's the one in the building that they're taking instructions to. And I think there's a genuine level of excitement for that. It also goes to show just how much franchise-wise they needed a fresh voice on that side of the ball. They needed a fresh way of approaching things. They needed as hard as it is to say, they needed to officially flush the Drew Brees era because they were still running the Drew Brees offense, the version that really grew to where he was year 15, and trying to use these other players to kind of run that same offense after it had already grown exponentially to where they just basically pull the plug, put a whole new scheme in, and everyone learns together. I think it's probably something that needed to happen sooner than it did. Better late than never, and hopefully that helps this team in 2024, because if it does, that's going to be a big reason why they are somehow able to get back into the playoffs.
And were there any final takeaways just from not just today's practice, but really the last, 9 practices? You've seen 3 of them the last 3 weeks.
I mean, it's been a good vibe. It's the guys that are there. It's well attended. Seems to be decent camaraderie developing. The further away you get from off-season talk and rumor and this and that, and the more you get into the actual playing of football, I've said this before, there's almost a therapeutic thing that happens where this is what they know, and all those other outside things and all those other issues that a lot of people talk about, they just kind of naturally filter out to the background. And I think organizationally, this offseason it came at a good time, just given just a lot of the negativity surrounding the organization. And I think for the most part, they've embraced that. And it's been a pretty good OTA so far.
And I'll tell you what, the players who aren't from here have definitely gotten an intro to Louisiana weather, because there's no cool breeze out there. It's hot. It's humid. You're sweating. I'm sure a lot of players have had to, maybe take a step aside from practice. So for those who aren't from Louisiana and New Orleans, welcome to the heat.
And guess what? This ain't even the hottest part of the calendar.
Exactly.
So how about that?
We just getting started.
One other thing, really, really, really long. Again, I said it a couple weeks ago. Incredibly long special teams periods. Whether it's kickoff, field goals, or punts. The periods are really long, so I don't know if that's something they're emphasizing. Headley today and Charlie Smith, the Irish field goal kicker. He was either 4 of 7 or 5 for 7 today. I thought Headley had a pretty good day punting the ball. So all in all, thorough workout out at Saints camp today.
Yeah, and special teams, that's another one of those areas to watch because the Saints, I believe it was Matthew Hayball who they've got in there to kind of compete with Headley. You've got the kicker going against Blake Grupe. So we've talked about all the competitions on offense and defense, QB2, cornerback, pass rusher, running back, wide receiver. Don't forget about kicker and punter because things could heat up there as well.
Here's the thing. You got Charlie Smith, an Irishman.
Yep.
You've got Lou Headley, an Australian, and I think Matthew Hayball,
Australian.
I think Blake Grupe is the only American in the specials from besides Zach Wood, the deep snapper. Just something that I noticed out there today. All right, I think we're good. We'll be back tomorrow for another podcast, probably piggybacking off of a couple topics we did today, just getting a little more in-depth with that. But anything else for us today?
Nope, we're good.
All right, he's good. I'm good. That's Andre Johnson Jr. I am Sean Fazende. We'll catch you guys next time on Overtime.